On today's show, Scottie Barnes and the Raptors stun the beleaguered Cavs. Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks combine for 65 as the Suns blow out the Pacers, and Jalen Johnson with a monster game as the Hawks take down the Jazz. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the nation, your team every day. And joining me is my partner in crime, David Ramil, the host of Locked On Heat. David, what did you see in the NBA last night?
It's hard to tell. It was a solid night of basketball with just 3 games, but it's still early in the season and some unexpected results, but some good basketball mixed in there as well. So can't wait to break it down.
Got 3 games to break down for you on today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen each and every day. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And where we are getting started is with the Raptors, who are apparently just this Cleveland Cavaliers team's kryptonite. They're now 2-0 against the Cavs this season, doing it in this game behind a monster performance from Scottie Barnes, who had 5 blocks and was just dominant against a front line of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley in this game. Let's go out to Locked On Raptors for more on this one.
Have a night, Scottie Barnes. The Toronto Raptors go into Cleveland and take down the Cavaliers 126-113 on the strength of Scottie Barnes doing everything. 28 points, 10 boards, 8 assists, a steal, and 5 blocks for the Toronto Raptors' best player, who has had a really brilliant all-around jack-of-all-trades season to start the year. And the Raptors are now 7-5. Another huge game as well from Emmanuel Quickley, who's really picked it up this last week. 25 points, 10 of 13 shooting, 5 of 7 from downtown. He was fantastic. Just swag emanating from that dude at all times as he puts up 32-foot threes left, right, and center. The Toronto Raptors offense is kind of unstoppable right now. It's shocking considering this is a team that hasn't been good at offense in years, but they're number 6 in the league per clean the glass overall, and they have the single best offense against top 10 defenses in the entire league per clean the glass. That's incredible. This is not a team that has gotten by on offense for a very long time, and the Cavaliers defense, they are the number 8 defense in the league. They had no chance of slowing down the Raptors. This was a really impressive win, the best win the Raptors have picked up all season long, and they are now 7-5 with a very creamy schedule coming up. They could really start racking up the wins here and climbing up the Eastern Conference standings.
David, this felt like maybe kind of a statement game for this Raptors team, they're stacking some good wins. They've, again, a couple wins against this Cavs team. They have a good win against the Bucks. Like, you got Scottie Barnes playing at what feels like an all NBA caliber level to start this season. Again, monster game here against a very elite front line, one of the most elite front lines in the entire NBA in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, completely on both sides of the court, completely sunned Evan Mobley in this game, who finished with just 7 points on 2 of 7 shooting, had 9 rebounds, just was at times felt like kind of a non-factor. Now, again, I will, caveat here, Cavs, 5 games, 7 nights. They looked a little beleaguered, exhausted. They looked like a team that had played a ton of games and had seen a lot of action. They were kind of slow at times with some of their defensive rotations, trying to get to the perimeter, closing out on shooters, that kind of thing. Toronto absolutely cooked them in transition. They just couldn't even get back to defend in transition. That's how tired they looked. Toronto with a 28-6 fast break advantage in this game. What'd you see out of Scottie Barnes in this one, kind of lifting the Raptors over the Cavs?
Just aggressive, something we haven't necessarily seen from him in terms of his overall efficiency and tying it all together in a way that I don't think we've seen flashes. And Scottie has been a solid player on teams that have been kind of trying to find their identity since he joined the league. And I think now he's really dominating in the sense where he's carrying the team and just saying, you know what, I'll take the team, and it's going as far as he goes. So it was the most impressive, I think, individual game from Barnes that I've seen in his young career, but a really great game for the Raptors overall. But you've got bring up a good point. Not to take anything away from Toronto, but Cleveland just spent 4 days in Miami. They're playing the second night of a back-to-back after a surprising win when they rested a lot of their players. No Evan Mobley, no Donovan Mitchell on Wednesday night against the Heat, and yet they still played out there. And look, Mitchell wasn't particularly efficient. Mobley was downright terrible, but it was the second night of a back-to-back, and they have played a number of games. So I do think that exhaustion did play a little bit of a factor. But having said that, that's just the way the NBA scheduling works, and it's not really no excuse for how Cleveland performed, other than to say Toronto just dominated them. I think they just beat them completely in many regards, not allowing them to get their usual offense going. They played poorly from three-point range. They just weren't getting to the line with the same frequency as they have in the past. And it was just a really dominant game, as I said before, by the Toronto Raptors.
At the time of us recording this, the Raptors are sitting at 6th in the Eastern Conference standings. How are we feeling about the Raptors as a potential playoff team this season? Do we see it potentially with this squad that they have?
I think when we did our preseason rankings, I had them somewhere in that vicinity because I did like the combination of players there. I mean, Brandon Ingram, a solid player. I think Barnes was kind of set to take a leak, Emmanuel quickly. RJ Barrett was disappointing tonight, just 9 points, 3 of 9 shooting. And yet, again, they were really, really good without him having much of an impact. But they're a good team, and they're kind of figuring things out. They couldn't be much worse than they were last season. I don't know. It just feels like it's still so early, and there's so many teams kind of clogged there. I mean, there's not much separating what Cleveland and Toronto are currently doing in the standings. Chicago has been a surprising team. Miami, Orlando has taken a bit of a drop from where they were last year. I think they've kind of not lived up to expectations. Philadelphia has exceeded expectations because they're playing well. And so it's still hard to tell, but I kind of get a good feeling that Toronto is going to be at least in the play-in tournament. I really do think that they'll be one of the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. Maybe that's not enough to necessarily guarantee them a top 6 seed, but they're going to be in the hunt just because there's so many teams kind of clogging up that second tier behind maybe, say, Cleveland and New York. Or I don't know. Can Detroit continue playing at such a high level?
Put some respect on Detroit, David, because they've come out the gate strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've exceeded expectations a little bit too. Like we knew that they were going to be good. I don't think anybody expected them to be this dominating this early in the season. But it's just been a little surprising because Cleveland seems to have taken a step back. No Max Strus, obviously, he's been out for the season. Darius Garland missed a couple of games as well. Like he's just he just without him there in the lineup, they just are lacking a certain amount of firepower there. They were so good last year. They've dropped off so completely, not quite to the level that we were. And so I think things will shake out as far as Toronto's concerned. Yeah. What about you? Do you see them as a potential playoff team? Because I think it's realistic to at least have them in that kind of conversation.
Your point about it, this team will go so far as Scottie Barnes takes them. Scottie is the best player and the star of this team. So yes, he needs to elevate his play to be that consistent kind of, I don't know if you can routinely expect him to drop, 28, 10 and 8 and flirt with a triple double every single night, but he also has that kind of talent. That's the crazy thing. It's like Scottie is such a unique player that can be so impactful on the defensive side and be such a connective tissue piece that elevates others offensively. But at the end of the day, you also need those play finishers around him to be able to be at a high level, right? You didn't get fantastic games from either of Brandon Ingram or RJ Barrett in this one, but you did have that incredible game from Emmanuel Quickly. You got some good bench contributions. Sandro Mamukelashvili was great off the bench for the Raptors. So when you get enough of those like supporting cast members, actually knocking down, making some buckets off of the opportunities created by a player like Scottie Barnes, then kind of the sky's the limit. And so I think I do like this Raptors team. I'm going to watch their career with great interest. Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like, let me just see how things pan out over maybe the next 10 games. Once we get a quarter of the way through the season, we'll have a little bit of a better feel on them as a potential playoff or top end play-in team potentially. But let's go out to Locked on Cavs to get the other side of this one before we move on to our next game on the slate.
Danny Cunningham here at Rocket Arena after the Toronto Raptors beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 126-113 on Thursday night. Let's talk about this one for 94 feet. I thought Kenny Atkinson said it best. He said the Cavs just didn't have the juice on Thursday night. The Toronto Raptors played harder. They wanted it more. They did the little things. They got to seemingly every loose ball. They got a ton of rebounds. Every time that they needed to make a big shot, they did. Every time the Cavs needed to make a big shot, they couldn't. That was ultimately the story of this game. The Cavs looked like a team that was exhausted. And yes, Donovan Mitchell did not play on Wednesday night in Miami. Evan Mobley did not play Wednesday night in Miami. I thought Donovan was okay. Certainly had turnover issues. Evan Mobley was not assertive enough in this basketball game, but the rest of the group looked pretty tired. It was the 5th game in 7 nights for the Cavs, and I think that is something that caught up with them, especially with this being the second night of a back-to-back, with last night's game being a very hard-fought one in Miami. So now what the Cavs need to do is rest a little bit. They need to take some time. They need to recompose themselves, and they've got 5 straight games coming up after this one at home. It's an opportunity for this team to get right a little bit, to figure some things out, to start to work through some of the kinks that they've had early on in the season, and they'll be fine. There's no reason to worry about this team as of right now, but this certainly was not an encouraging performance on Thursday night. They're back in action on Saturday at home against the Memphis Grizzlies, and I'll talk to you then.
Will the Cavs be able to bounce back on this next little 5-game homestand? We'll see what happens there. But coming up, Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks combining for 65 against the struggling Pacers. How legit is this Phoenix Suns team? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Drip Drop. Look, when I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, my mood, even my skin seems to look a little bit better. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. It's great because whether you're running out, knocking out errands, or just, maybe you go take it before going to the gym, or just even if you're having like a little bit of a midday slump and you need a little bit of that hydration, that kind of pick me up, Drip Drop is perfect for that. So right now, Drip Drop is offering our listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNBA for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off of everything from sofas to spatulas and everything in between. Honestly, the best part about Wayfair is how fast everything ships. It gets to your doorstep so incredibly quick, just in time for the holidays. So don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off on all items, on a vast sort of selection of items. That's wayfair.com, wayfair.com. Sale ends December 7th. And continuing on here at Locked On NBA Game Night. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. For your next listen, you can go check out Locked On Heat with David. Come hang out with me over at Locked On Rockets. Go listen to the Locked On show for your favorite team. Maybe go check out Locked On Suns, who just put a beat down on the struggling Indiana Pacers. Let's go out to Locked On Suns for more on this blowout affair.
The Phoenix Suns continue to put BTA on pretty much every team that they face right now. Here's the statistic for you. In the 7 of their last 8 games, the Phoenix Suns have been up 18 plus points at minimum on their opponents. And they are now 7-0 in those games. Every game that they're getting up big, they're also doing it without surrendering leads. Grayson Allen gets hurt in this game. Devin Booker steps up big, and that's exactly what you need from your Supermax player. I've been on Devin Booker a little bit this year. He's been mostly great, but in stretches where I feel like it's time for him to take over, it feels like he's been a little timid doing so, but that was not the case tonight. No Jalen Green, no Grayson Allen. 2 out of your top 3 shot makers, Devin Booker puts the team on his back in that third quarter, and puts the Suns over the top. That then bled into a 20-0 run to start the fourth quarter. The Phoenix Suns look really good. And if you're projecting them to go somewhere this year, you can't leave them out of your play-in projections. And that's what it feels like for the Suns right now. Just really good times.
I love Ben. That was a lot of hype to then finish with play-in projections, and I was like, "Come on, man! Like you gotta, like if you're gonna be that hype about, like just say playoff team, like just go all the way with it. You can't end that note on be like, yeah, and then play-in team.
They'll be one of the top 10 teams in the West for sure. Maybe.
I love Ben. It's all love, Ben. We love you here. Look, honestly though, and granted, like by the 20-0 start in the fourth quarter, like I mean, that was kind of like blowout theater a little bit, and it was C team versus C team, or at least backups versus backups. So I don't know how much stock to put in that, but this Suns team, David, I mean, we kind of talked about it going into the season, doing some of our power rankings and where we thought these teams could be, and this West, with a couple teams maybe struggling and not performing up to the level that we kind of thought they would, with teams kind of bottoming out here and there in certain areas of the standings, like Dallas really struggling, the Clippers not being anywhere near what we thought that they would be, even the Grizzlies struggling to start the year. Hell, I mean, right now Utah is the 10th best team in the West at 4-8, which is kind of scary. The West is looking a little bit like the East at the bottom of that play-in bracket. But this Suns team feels really good. Like Devin Booker has had a strong start to the year. Dillon Brooks, when he's been available, has been great for this Suns team. Their point of attack defense is next level. Like they're actually a team that feels like it has a bit of a defensive identity kind of brewing, I guess. And they're doing all of this without, only one game so far from Jalen Green, has the hamstring issue, going to be reevaluated in about a month or so. So that's unfortunate, because one of the most interesting dynamics of this Suns team was going to be, how does Jalen Green play now, effectively becoming the second fiddle to Devin Booker, as opposed to having to be the number one option that he was here in Houston. So, I mean, what's your read on this Suns team? Like, what are you thinking about them so far? They're 8-5 through this early part of the season. They're flirting with being, in the top end of kind of that play-in bracket in the West, and they've put together some quality wins, like been illustrated.
Yeah, I think it's still part of the small sample size theater here, where I can't really give too much credit to what we've seen so far. I like the foundation of what they built. It's not to knock them. I think they're still missing something on the offensive end, and while Green might certainly help in that regard, he might just be as much of a problem defensively, and so that kind of balances out what he'll be able to contribute once he does return to the lineup. And I think the defensive identity that you spoke
I will just on the Jalen Green defense note, I feel like he gets a bum rap defensively, but like in the 2 years under Ime Udoka, you can go back and look at the isolation numbers when teams tried to target and tried to punish
play
Jalen
for the
Green
Rockets. You don't have to defend them anymore. It's okay.
I know I don't have to, but like facts are facts. Like he's a much improved defender, and I think that as part of kind of this potentially blossoming defensive identity in Phoenix, like I don't think it's fair to look at him as a defensive liability. In fact, like I feel confident oftentimes last year, and I would feel confident with Jalen even in a Suns jersey now, of him guarding at at a plus level defensively more often than not. Obviously, there's going to be certain matchups that give him trouble due to size, physicality, things of that nature, but you can make that argument for anybody in the NBA. I think that Jalen Green is, on a night-to-night basis, a plus level defender at this stage in his career.
Fair. That's fine. And look, I'll cop to that, and at the same time say that I don't know that he's going to provide the boost offensively. Like that's what you're hoping for when you look at his overall game. And that's what this team needs. They still need something offensively. This feels kind of reminiscent of what we saw from the Magic, say, a couple seasons ago, where they were still missing that kind of offensive punch, but you saw them kind of develop that defensive identity, but they just weren't very good. And they're not good enough to, I think, even to Ben's point, be really considered a play-in team. I think eventually things will even out where people will say, you know what, we've got to take this Phoenix Suns seriously. But without that kind of score, the top-end score to complement Devin Booker, they're not going to be beating teams. Now, this was an impressive showing. Like to be able to keep even an Indiana team, and look, on paper, you could say, well, the Pacers aren't very good, missing Tyrese Halliburton, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. But at least offensively, they still have their identity. They do put up a lot of shots, and Phoenix kept them from that. They do harass them. And again, to your point, a great perimeter defense, really keeping them from getting comfortable, milking the shot clock up as much as possible and kind of forcing those turnovers. So that's something to kind of hang your hat on, but I'm still not necessarily believing this that early on that they'll be able to sustain it over the course of the entire season. So it looks like at least a foundation of something is being built, something good, and yet I don't know how sustainable it is, and I'm not sure that they're going to be really. I have to disagree. I don't think they're going to be a play-in team. I think they'll eventually bottom out to one of the bottom 5 teams in the Western Conference.
This has a chance to that's the crazy thing is I'm so torn on it with this Suns team, because once they're actually truly healthy, right, and they get all their parts in place, whenever that may be, we're talking at least a month from now before Jalen Green is reevaluated, and then seeing if he can actually play games again. Sure. But that kind of front end, right, and the crazy part too is not only did Dillon Brooks bring his defensive tenacity, but the thing that he brought to Houston, which was kind of surprising, is the offensive contributions. It got to a point where for the better part of last season, it felt like Dillon Brooks was more valuable to the Rockets for his offensive contributions than what he provided defensively. Because unfortunately, DB he's a pesky defender, and he's very much a mental, get inside your head, physical, bother you, whatever. But he also makes some stupid fouls occasionally, and he'll make some poor choices and gamble defensively. So he is a tone setter on that end, but seeing the types of offensive production that he's had with the Suns so far in his brief career with them, again, 32 points in this one, 12 of 18 shooting. He cleaned up the shot selection considerably with the Rockets, and it feels like some of that has carried over to Phoenix now.
Yes. But is that more of a byproduct of Indiana just playing poorly defensively? Because I think that's a part of it too. It's not to knock what he's done. I think, again, there's going to be those moments. I just don't know that you're looking at him as a consistent complement to Devin Booker, to the same point where he's going to be able to help carry this team to sustainable activity offensively that's going to translate into actual winning games. It's going to help occasionally, but they're not going to get enough out of him, at least in my opinion, where he's going to be able to push this team into say top 6 in the West.
Yeah, I will say over this stretch, right? The Suns have one really good win against the Spurs, and then they've beaten up on a bunch of really bad teams during this stretch. So it'll be really interesting to see what they're able to actually do when the going gets kind of tougher against some difficult competition, to see if they can keep up this level of play. But Booker is playing like a superstar. He's elevating his teammates, and it does kind of feel like on any given night, right, somebody is able to, kind of step up, or he's kind of empowering one of his teammates, be it, that Jalen Green debut game where he popped off, or this game with Dillon Brooks, or, even getting some bench contributions from key contributors like Oso Ighodaro, who was absolutely fantastic in this game for Phoenix, coming off the bench, 7 of 9 shooting, 17 points, in just 26 minutes of run. He was great off the bench, posted a ridiculous plus minus in this game, by the way, tied for 3rd highest plus minus in NBA history, plus 52. Which is kind of nuts. But yeah, this Suns team, again, a little too early to tell, but I think I'm a little more bought in than I thought I'd be at this stage. And that's even without, seeing what the actual potential dynamic duo of Devin Booker and Jalen Green looks like. So I'm going to be monitoring the Suns team very closely as we navigate this season. Coming up, we got our final game of the night, a monster performance from Jalen Johnson, and the Hawks just raining fire from deep against the Jazz. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops their prices 50% off an order with Dash Pass the very next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking about player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want to get your hands on. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the Bag Drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every single game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, you can head on over to FanDuel.com. Take a look at the odds-on favorites to win the title this season. The Thunder still favorites to repeat at plus 170. The Nuggets behind them at plus 650. The Cavs sitting at plus 700. Rounding out the top five, you have the Knicks at plus 1300 and the Rockets, H-Town, baby, plus 1400. So for all those odds and so much more, visit FanDuel.com, where they are giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On NBA Game Night. One more game on our 3-game slate to get to, where this was a super entertaining game between the Atlanta Hawks and the Utah Jazz. Some monster stat lines in this one. Maybe none bigger, though, than Jalen Johnson, who put up a ridiculous line. Let's go out to Locked On Hawks to hear more about this one.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Roll. I'm the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast, and the Hawks have now won 4 games in a row after a wild, and I do mean wild, victory in Utah on this Thursday evening. The Hawks hit 24 three-pointers. They were one shy of a franchise record, including 14 combined from Okongwu, who had 8 in his own personal career high, and beat Krejci. And even then, the biggest story of the night was still Jalen Johnson. Even on top of all of that stuff, Jalen Johnson, 31 points, 18 rebounds, 14 assists, and 7 steals. The only player in NBA history to have those numbers. 31, 18, 14, and 7 steals in one game. And the Hawks didn't even play that well in this game, honestly. But they shot the ball so incredibly well. Jalen Johnson was so good overall in this one that even with some defensive lapses, to be kind about the first 3 quarters of this game, the Hawks were able to hold on, scratch, claw. They were down by 1 or 2 points in the fourth quarter at different times, but they had a nice run at the end of the game. And importantly, a professional, taking care of business kind of win on the road in Utah. And we'll get into all of that and more when it comes up on the Locked On Hawks podcast.
This was an absurd game from Jalen Johnson, man. Like just watching him dominate this game, he is so insanely talented. And my one holdup with him as a player, right, is that outside shot, right? If it ever becomes even like moderately consistent from 3, he was 4 or 5 in this game, but he's a career, he averages around like 30% or so. But like, how are we at all close, David, to Jalen Johnson either approaching or getting close to maybe contending for the mantle of the Hawks' best player?
Wow. That's a tough one. I don't think you're going to get a more dynamic player than Trae Young, but I think best feels appropriate, if nothing else, just because of the versatility of what he does and the number of ways that he can beat a team, because he can do it on both ends, and he is a solid rebounder at his position. So, I mean, yes, it feels kind of sacrilegious to say, because you've got a roster with Trae Young on there, and yet you look at a line like tonight and you see what he's capable of, and you saw what they did last year without him, and you wonder, what, maybe he is their ceiling raiser to a degree that Trae Young is not. Maybe Trae Young raises their floor, but Jalen Johnson raises their ceiling. And I think as such, best player feels somewhat appropriate. So you know what? I've never thought of it that way, because again, it just feels wrong to even consider that possibility, but it might start to be. I think by the end of the season, we'll have a clear idea of that, but right now I'd have to say strongly in consideration.
Look, man, they had a 2-3 start with Trae Young before he, went down to injury. And even that final game, which they ultimately did win on the road against Brooklyn, Trae only played 7 minutes. So effectively there was another game without Trae Young. So realistically, a 1-3 start with Trae Young. And then they rip off a bunch of wins. They look good. And not to say that they look, I'm not going to go so far as say they look better without Trae, but I feel like it's one of those weird things where when you have a player that's so heliocentric the way that Trae is, when Trae's not out there, it forces everybody else to touch the ball more. It forces other guys, for better or for worse, which maybe in this case with the Hawks, it's for the better, to share the ball and to kind of take on slightly bigger roles offensively. And sometimes, the one downside that I don't think it's talked about enough with some of these heliocentric guys, right? Guys like Trae or Luka or Harden or whatever, is it takes a very unique style of role player to be able to thrive alongside those guys, or even fellow co-stars to thrive alongside those guys, because you don't get to touch the ball as often as you would normally within the confines of like a regular team structure, right? And so that's really hard to do, to have a guy that just has his hands and fingerprints on the ball as much as Trae does. And, yet Trae still isn't on the level of some of those other heliocentric stars, right? So we know that heliocentric style of play has kind of a ceiling, or maybe there's some like diminishing returns on it, right? We did see Luka take the Mavericks to the finals recently, but James Harden had his years with the Rockets and was ever able to kind of, climb the mountaintop, achieve a title, that kind of thing. And Trae is not nearly as good as either of those two guys. So at what point do you look at this and think either A, Trae has to adapt his play style, or B, like if you're the Hawks, do you start looking at like this period without Trae and you're like, maybe can you get something back for Trae Young and then like go in a different direction with the team? Again, slightly sacrilegious. Maybe this is early reaction to, a small sample size, but I'm just saying.
No, I think it's a great point. I think that's been the buzz about Trae for a long time, is that his style of play and his one-dimensionality makes it difficult to build the right kind of team where you have to find the right number of complementary players. But you look at a performance like tonight from Onyeka Okongwu, 32 points, 8 of 14 from three-point range.
Just unconscious.
He's not going to get those shots with Trae out there. So you'll wind up missing out on opportunities for other players to shine, because Trae is going to be ball dominant, and he has to reduce his offense to the degree where he's kind of, I think, better suited to be the elite playmaker that he is, to get everybody else going. And I think he's adapted his game to some degree. And yet again, because of his limitations defensively, you're always going to wind up giving something up in return. So it's a balance that the Hawks have to find a way to strike. But I think this roster is solid enough to kind of withstand what it is that Trae gives up and still benefit from what he does bring to the table, because you do want to be able to have somebody like that who can set the table for so many players and also contribute some high potent offense when the time is right. So, it's an interesting challenge for the Hawks right now, but I think that ship has sailed. I don't think they can trade him at this point in time, because I just think his value is almost decreased. It's almost when the buzz first growing about Young maybe a couple seasons ago, when you thought maybe the Hawks would just kind of clean slate on that roster, I think that was a better time to have that conversation. Now, I don't know what you'd get back for Trae Young. Like, what's his value realistically across the league? It's probably at an all-time low.
Yeah, we kind of jumped, and my apologies, we kind of flew into big picture stuff there for a second, but the actual game, like it was a back and forth high octane affair, and there were not, it wasn't just all Hawks either. Like, this was a game where you go back and look at the performances on the other side, right? Markkanen had a monster game, 40 points, 15 of 25 shooting. He hit 6 threes in this one. Ace Bailey was incredible in this one with 21 points on 8 of 13, 4 of 7 from downtown, 19 points from Keontae George. Like, this was just a high octane defense optional kind of affair. And Utah kind of roared back into this game with a really big 36-23 third quarter. Yeah. And then the Hawks were able to kind of like simmer things down and settle in there, in the fourth, holding Utah to just 19 points in the final frame. They were able to escape with the win. But this Utah team has been like surprisingly kind of competitive. Like, they're only 4-8 on the year, but they're like, this was the perfect like tanking masterclass, right? Where you get great games from some of the young guys, and yet you still walk away with the win. Like, for any team that has like an organization that is like actively trying to lose games, this is the perfect style of loss, right? Where you get some really encouraging performances from your young players. Ace Bailey looked awesome. Keontae George looked awesome. And then you still wind up with the L at the end. So you're stacking the L's the way you want for your tankathon race at the end of the season.
And Markkanen continues to increase his trade value. Like, if there is realistic potential for him to be moved at some point this season, like after a game like this, it becomes even greater in terms of what you can get back for a team that is looking to make that sort of change. This is a perfect game. So that's a great point. And yet, Utah showed some pluck. They showed some tenacity. And again, a monster game for Markkanen certainly would help in that regards. But they still have a long way to go. And I'm not sure exactly what their identity will be at the end of the season.
Their identity is going to be a Danny Ainge fire sale at some point. We're all waiting on it. But honestly, I don't think Markkanen is going to get traded. Like my gut is telling me it's not going to happen just because of how difficult it would be to try and match salaries for what Markkanen's making it with a mid-season trade in particular, and to that point, like what team would, I know we during one of our preseason shows, we talked about the Hawks as like a potential team, right? With the expiring salary of Kristaps Porzingis, and like, he's not even playing right now and the Hawks look pretty solid. So like, maybe that's a team that looks to explore an option there. Although with the Clippers as bad as they look right now, like there's a chance that maybe like James Harden is on the market, and obviously the Mavs too with their implosion and Nico Harrison being gone. Like maybe AD and Kyrie are up on the trade block. So like there could be a lot of big names on the move this trade deadline. There could be. I mean, you think AD and Kyrie just want to sit around in Dallas? Like they're trying to usher in the new era of Cooper Flag. Like I can't imagine that they're going to stick it out in Dallas. So I don't know. I feel like there's going to be too many other names moving, and I feel like it's too hard to make a trade for Markkanen work mid-season. Maybe if a team had come along, like the Warriors were so heavily rumored to have interest in him in the offseason and things like that. It's just so hard to make a trade work like that for a salary like that mid-season, unless you're sending back another equivalent large salary. And at that point, like, are you giving up another star player to add Markkanen? Like, what are we doing here? So my gut tells me that Markkanen will still be on the Jazz and continuing his role as their de facto tank commander, I guess, for the foreseeable future, which in part kind of sucks because like Keontae George and Ace Bailey are still getting plenty of usage, plenty of reps, but like, I want to see more of them. Like, I don't need to see Lauri Markkanen dropping 40 a night. We know what he can do. Just go get to a winning team so you can actually do this in a winning context instead of just racking up L's in Utah. But with that, we want your thoughts on the NBA's 3-game slate. The Raptors destroying the an embarrassing kind of the beleaguered Cavaliers, the Suns, D-Book, and I guess DB, double DB, Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks. It didn't click to me until just now, combining for 65. Are the Suns legit this season? Give us your thoughts on that. Give us your thoughts on Utah, on Atlanta, everything in the YouTube comments. Until next time, we appreciate you guys for tuning in here at Locked On NBA Game Night. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, and we will catch you guys on our very next game night.